Ted Halls on them. Just always like a whole pack of them.
Yeah.
Just like, here you go. These are good. Do you need a cough drop? My dad, okay, this is another thing.
Okay.
And maybe, I'm not into running.
Actually,
very
Mr.
much.
Tepper, by the way. Just.
What do you mean?
You don't like being called Mr. Tepper. You always go, that's my dad.
Oh, well, whatever. Yes. Mark, my father.
Mark.
Hey, Mark. He's not listening to this podcast, especially the pre-show. So my dad was a runner. That's what he would do. His exercise would be he would go out and run.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so already strike one. Running's terrible. We all know this.
Come on, Mark.
But the thing that I always he was always big into running candy. Are you familiar with this concept? The idea of you pop a Jolly Rancher in your mouth and it like while you're running.
Never in my life.
Is this
I feel like that's just a
way
choking hazard
or
waiting
a way
to happen.
to eat candy. You know what I mean? That was running candy always seemed very odd. But my father that was a huge thing. He's like, oh, I gotta have a piece of candy.
That's a phenomenon that I can easily say that I have.
Yes.
I've never heard of.
Right.
But okay.
I just don't know. It was a strange thing. But again, that's on my dad for running.
Yeah, exactly.
Running stinks.
Awful.
Nobody likes that.
But yeah, no, I did the cough drops, the lozenges, whatever you want to call them. A lot of hot tea. Took some allergy pills this morning. Took some Dayquil this morning. Kind of souped up over here.
Let's go to our special guest here, who's just arrived, fresh off of Conference USA Media Days. Who's talking right now?
The Rice players, but I talked to them, asked them a question, so now it's on to Will Hall at Southern Miss.
Okay.
Who I'm fascinated by the way, but
Southern Miss is the one. This is their fourth coach in
3
18
years.
months.
Yeah.
Listen. As far as I know, and as far as TexasFootball.com knows, Scotty Walden is still the story of the day.
Correct.
But yes, in a very real way, yes, this is their fourth coach in a year.
In a year. Incredible.
Nice.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Shahan's here because he's
Shahan's voice sounds a little gone too.
Yeah.
I think we're all
we're all feeling.
And
a
this
little
is me recovered. This is
Yeah.
like me after 2 days.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Between you, Chandra's voice is riding the struggle bus.
Steps was too. I think it's better now.
But Steph has an excuse because, as you saw, you got to see the phenomenon firsthand. Matt Stepp at coaching school.
Yeah.
It's like seeing a lion on a safari. It really
Like I
is.
said, it's like there's a spotlight that literally just follows him around. Like everywhere else is dark, and then there's the step spotlight, and everyone flocks to the light like a bunch of gnats.
Yeah. No, speaking of Rice, I did the At the Roost podcast last night.
Oh,
those
nice.
They obviously they do a great job, and I was like, man, first of all, my voice sounds terrible, so I apologize, and second of all, my mind is everywhere right now. First of all, with the news that we'll talk about, and second of all, just because I am exhausted from coaching school, so I'm like, man, if I if I want to show off my podcasting prowess, let's say, that is not the podcast I'm going to send out to people.
Yeah, it's just boy, that Sean J. Raja, great information. Sounds like gravel. Sounds very bad.
Like, man, that man should probably be taking some medication or something. He is all over the place.
Is he dying? Sean J. Raja passes away after podcasting. Stuff like that.
Yeah,
All right.
Mind over
Hoot,
somewhere.
hoot.
Over
Let's make sure we get you out of here because I know you got a hard out.
Yeah.
Hit the theme, Expo. Let's go!
Ain't how to sing blues, baby. The shot glass in your hand. It ain't how to sing blues, baby. head.
It's Texas Football Today, a show with nothing to talk about. My name's Greg Tepper. I'm the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football magazine, texasfootball.com, a corresponding website. Thank you for spending part of your day with us, whether you're watching us live at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, or listening to us on the podcast, which you can subscribe to on the podcast vendor of your choice. Either way, thank you for doing your part to support your local mediocre internet show. I'm sitting over there at the helm today, making us sound good. She's the Duchess of the Dorks. She's Ashley Pickle. Hello, Ashley Pickle.
Howdy,
Hi.
folks.
And sitting to my right, the college football insider for Dave Campbell's Texas Football. You know him, you love him. He's Shahan J. Raja. Hello, Shahan J. Raja.
What's up? She can only do so much to make us all sound good.
I
right
know.
now.
This is the best she
This
can.
is like
can't-
the mics are on, and that's about all I could do.
I'm trying, Jennifer. Today is Thursday, July 22nd.
Call back.
2021. It's a good meme, okay? 126 days till Thanksgiving. Happy birthday to Alex Trebek, R.I.P.
Oh,
Episode
no.
1206.
cries.
We got a lot to talk about. That's why I'm kind of zooming through the intro, because we got to get Shahan out of here, because he's got to go talk with, who's at 12:20?
Seth.
Ooh,
Luttrell.
Seth.
Oh,
Luttrell.
hang on.
Ya boy.
We can pause for this. Caw.
There we go. So we got to get him to Conference USA Media Days here in just a moment. So we're going to talk about the big news that came out yesterday between the big report from our friend Brent Zornham at the Houston Chronicle about Texas and OU eyeing the SEC. We'll also talk about the big high school news that came through today, and then back half of the show, if there's some time, we'll take a look. We may have an interview with our friend Dalton DeGraffenreid, the coach at Klondike, who we caught up with at the THSCA Coaching School and Convention.
I just love all those words. Dalton DeGraffenreid from Klondike.
Dalton,
Just three
Dalton
electric
DeGraffenreid from
words,
Klondike.
man.
And here's the thing.
The Cougars.
He played for Crane.
Yeah, no, that's the guy that you posted about last night.
Incredible.
Oh,
Crane.
my.
Incredible.
Golden.
Everything about Dalton DeGraffenreid,
Yeah.
except the fact that he makes me feel really old, is
I
great.
mean, it's a shoe fits.
Lots of good words.
Do we have first four through the door, Sassy?
Daniel Agnew, Rob Hadaway, Aaron Arbuckle, and our boy Meese. Welcome back,
Welcome
fellas.
back. Okie dokie. So yesterday I stepped out in the hallway, and then I came back out of the hallway,
And everything was on fire.
Shahan turned to me, and he goes, "So the internet's on fire."
Listen, I stepped out to, of course, after seeing Giannis's video, I went out to Chick-fil-A, got a half Sprite, half lemonade.
Did you actually?
I did.
Was it
actually.
good?
It was very good,
Okay.
actually. So, maybe something to think about looking forward. But, but yeah, I came back and I saw people tweeting like, I wonder where this school is gonna land. I'm like, I missed something.
Yes.
I missed something critical, and I did. Brent Zornham from the Houston Chronicle saying that Texas and Oklahoma have reached out to the SEC about potentially becoming members.
Okay, so there's a lot to break down here. First and foremost, let's congratulate Brent Zornham on the scoop. Our buddy
Yeah.
Brent Zornham.
Yeah, that's
he wrote
big
the
time.
he wrote the story of the summer. It's hot Brent summer.
I had a friend over who works for the Chronicle say, yeah, he met his page view goal in one day.
Yeah.
For the month.
Absolutely.
For the month.
He was, but congratulations to him. And I think it's worth mentioning. Let's start there.
Yes.
Brent Zornham is not some fly-by-night blogger who's throwing stuff against the wall.
We won't throw out names, but yes.
He's not just trying. It's not clickbait.
No.
He's not
no.
just trying to get clicks.
If Brent Zornham says it, Brent Zornham is a
done his
super
research.
respected reporter.
And the Houston Chronicle, I mean, they have standards, right? Like that's the
Yes.
short way to put it, right? They're not gonna, and even it's not just a tweet, right? It is a story that he put up.
Yes.
It is well sourced. What he said on SEC Network is that his source wanted it out. So this is clearly somebody somewhere in some administration.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know which school, we don't know which area. Somebody wanted this out because they wanted this chaos.
And the chaos did come down because it was timed really well, because Jimbo Fisher was like walking to the stage at SEC Media Days for that time. So Texas and Oklahoma have reached out to the SEC about potential membership. Let's talk about what this doesn't mean for a minute. This doesn't mean that Texas is going to play a conference game against Florida in September, okay? Let's all pump the brakes, because it sounds like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, the earliest that we could see something like this realistically is probably 2025, correct?
So here's the deal, right? So like you mentioned, this is not something that's going to happen imminently, even if it is going to happen, which we still don't know at that point by any means. So back a couple months ago, the Big 12 went and kind of reached out to the TV networks and talked about renegotiating their deal. And to me, what that said at that time was, one, there's some momentum to try to think about what the future of the Big 12 could be. But two, I think that they wanted to just see what the offers would be like, right? If the offer was going to be good enough, if Texas and Oklahoma were going to be kind of satisfied with the money that they could get, I think that this becomes a non-issue, right? The TV network said, no, we're going to wait. The Big 12 has a grant of rights, which comes up in 2025, which means that all of the schools are locked in until 2025. Now, Texas and Oklahoma can get out of it. It would cost them what they would have received for that year as a penalty in addition to not receiving that money.
Right.
So basically over the course of 2 years, they'd have to pay $70 million.
Yeah.
Right. So this is not a small deal, right? It's hard to, I'm not saying it's impossible to see them go out early. And certainly, look, if this sets things in motion, and this might have been a reason that it was leaked too, maybe then all of a sudden the other 8 schools start looking around too, and then there's just sort of a consensus that we're going to break this up early, right? In which case nobody would have to pay penalties.
Right. So that's one of the things that is interesting about this is there's obviously a lot of moving parts, and there's nothing guaranteed.
No.
And Longhorn Network probably isn't footing a $70 million bill.
I also think it's worth mentioning that this is probably not the only conference that these 2 schools have reached out to. I think that's probably fair.
Right. I think that a big thing right now is that just this report coming out, and certainly, they didn't even say, Zornman didn't say anything like this. I don't think that this is by any means saying, like, Texas and Oklahoma are like, this is it.
Yeah.
They're just saying, hey, we need to think about it. We want to know what the offer is like. We need to know the landscape. And I think that they're going to do that with a number of conferences. Now, there's a lot of reasons why the SEC could make sense, but I do think certainly, Oklahoma's probably going to consider, do we want to be tied up with Texas still?
Yeah.
I think that Texas is going to look around and say, okay, well, we have this Longhorn Network contract that's going to go to 2031. Well, Big Ten, what could you do with that? Pac-12, what could you do with that? ACC, what could you do with that? I mean, these are the 2 arguably biggest free agents that we've had in 25 years in terms of if they do decide not to re-up this contract with the Big 12, which does seem likely. And I believe that there's been some confirmation that might happen. But that doesn't mean that anything is decided at this point.
Well, right. And that's I think, it's long been portended that the Big 12 is going to break up. Like, that's just been kind of pretended basically since the dust settled. The last time, you remember, they went through the whole rigmarole with Houston.
Then the Big 12 has 10 teams.
And exactly right. They did the whole thing of the whole song and dance. It's long been portended that they're going to break up. But it's also long been portended that the people who are going to throw the switch on the detonator are going to be Texas or OU. Those are the power brokers within the conference. And so that's why I think everybody, if Iowa State
and Kansas,
God bless Iowa State, but if Iowa State was saying, we're flirting with the Big Ten, I think the Big 12 go,
cool.
Okay.
Have fun.
Cincy, come on down.
Yeah, exactly right. But with Texas and OU, right. I mean, let's be real about that. And one other thing, and this kind of drove me nuts, we have to talk about what conference realignment is actually about. Okay? I'm seeing so many people who are like, why would the SEC want Texas? They've only won the conference 3 times in the last 25 years or whatever the number is. I'm like, guys, you are grossly missing the point of what conference realignment's about.
Right. And so certainly the first part of it is money, right? The first part is just more and more money. But the other thing that I will say is
the second part is also money. I want to be very clear.
But the third part, so the one thing is, right, like Texas and Oklahoma might not make much more money in the SEC. It's probably going to be comparable. Other SEC schools, that's going to be the pitch. South Carolina is going to make a lot more money. Tennessee's going to make a lot more money, et cetera, et cetera. For Texas and Oklahoma, I mean, the way that they have their contract set up with the Big 12, because the Big 12 is the 3rd conference by quite a bit in terms of average revenue, right? And in terms of average payout. So, like, it's not like these programs are poor, because Oklahoma and Texas also own their 3rd-tier rights and make money separately from every other Big 12 school off of those, and that's a $10 to $15 million advantage, right? So it is money, but I think that the other thing too is that, just looking at Oklahoma for a second, right? I think that Oklahoma feels like we have a perceived disadvantage being in the Big 12, and we can be that 4th playoff team every year, but to get from 4 to 1, maybe we can't do it here. Maybe people see us as having a ceiling. Maybe recruits see it as, well, but that's the good league where you're going to get drafted, and people don't see us that way as Oklahoma. Now, for Texas, and I wrote this a little bit in a piece on TexasFootball.com, and I don't want to be too rude about this, but there is a lot of, I think, of chasing A&M's shadow, right? Of seeing Texas A&M, a program that has never been equal to Texas since post-World War II, surpass them in every way, right? And I think that if you're Texas, you're just like, I want to shut that down. And you know what? This worked for Texas A&M, and I think Texas A&M also did a lot of really good things to help themselves that I don't think Texas would do, even if they entered the SEC. But I think that has to be a huge part of it, because if Texas A&M is doing, what Missouri's doing right now, right? If they're a 7-8 win team, I don't think that there's sort of this level of consternation. But Texas A&M was number 5 in the country last year. They entered this year as a team that could make the college football playoff. I think that Texas feels like, okay, well, this last decade sucked. Let's just try something new.
I think it was the Dave Campbell's cover that really just
might
pushed
have
them to
been.
their limit, if we're being completely honest here.
Oh no. Me doing that and helping with that Dave Campbell's cover screwed over Texas Tech.
So let's.
Way to go, Shahan. This is on you.
So there's a lot of tentacles, and I know you're going to talk about it expansively on Republic of Football, which you should subscribe to.
Yes.
But let's talk about reasons why this wouldn't happen. Okay,
Yes.
I just want to do this. Yes. First and foremost is there's a large entity in College Station who is going to do their damnedest to make sure it doesn't.
Yes.
Because, and more or less Ross Bjork came out and said that yesterday and said we are 100% opposed to it. Now, I believe the number is 4 schools in the SEC would have to say no to prevent the SEC from extending the invitation. I think it's probably fair to say there are 2 no's, Missouri and A&M, their former Big 12 bunkmates.
Arkansas?
I think Arkansas really would have to consider saying no.
That's a bunkmate.
Maybe.
Now, the one thing that I'll say is Arkansas, I think, would love to re-up that game with Texas as a home and home, but also, you've seen – it's not a coincidence that Arkansas had a great 2000s and all of a sudden in 2012 on has been like, what happened? It's because Texas A&M came into the league. And now you're going to add Oklahoma, who's going to pull everybody from Arkansas, and Texas, who's going to pull everybody from Arkansas. I think that you have to ask competitive questions. And the other thing, too, that I think you have to ask is certainly we don't know how the conference would be set up. Would it be an East-West division? There's been talk about pods and stuff like that. If you're one of the Mississippi schools and all of a sudden you add Texas and Oklahoma to your division, maybe that's not attractive.
Sure. I'll just say this. I think A&M's an easy no.
Yeah.
I think Missouri's a pretty easy no.
Yeah.
I don't think there's another easy no.
I really think Arkansas is.
I think Arkansas as well.
I just don't think that, guys.
There's a lot of heated blood that goes into this.
Maybe, but at the same time, Arkansas needs money.
Not really. Money's not really the issue. It's recruiting ground. I think that's a much bigger issue for Arkansas than pure
Trying to
dollars.
convince someone to go to Fayetteville.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think Arkansas is an easy no. I'll just say that.
That was the pitch historically, right? Was that, yes, LSU, but Arkansas is the school that if you live in the Metroplex, we are your easiest path to play in the Southeastern
SEC.
Conference.
Yep.
And at the second of that change, it is not a coincidence that all of a sudden the program has fallen apart.
Okay. All right. I disagree. I think that there's a lot of benefits for Arkansas making it a more robust conference in that regard. There's also we're going to see we're like Texas is its own enemy in this regard too, because here's the thing. Texas is this is going to only sound disrespectful, but I promise you this is just the reality of the situation in the Big 12. That Texas is the power broker in the Big 12. Okay,
I mean, that's no question.
Them and OU.
Yeah,
and
Texas half a step down OU.
Yes, yeah, exactly right. If they move to the SEC, they are still a big boy, but they are. I was listening to Split Zone Duo, and they brought up the point that they're going to be sitting right next to Greg Byrne at Alabama.
Yep.
Okay, and Auburn and Florida and Georgia and all these very powerful people that they are not going to get to run the conference anymore from a strategic,
you go back to the
functional
kids'
perspective.
table at that point.
No, it's not even the kids' table. But you're going from being up here to being equals.
I want to be very clear, right? The current Big 12 that started in 2012 exists the way that it does and is structured the way that it does and has made decisions the way that it does strictly because of Texas's ego. This is the only reason the league exists like this. It's part of the reason that they didn't expand. It's part of the reason that they kind of held together like this. The whole breakup of the league came about because of the Longhorn Network, right? So every little detail of what's happened is because Texas had a thought one time, maybe we like that. And so the Big 12 is like, well, we got to adjust, right? And if you go to the SEC, there are at least 5 programs that can just tell you to go sit in the corner, right? Yes. No, not Texas is still going to be one of the biggest programs.
Correct.
I don't want to act like, they're not going to be Vanderbilt, but Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M now. That's a bad start.
I know we got to get you to Conference USA Media Days here in a
And
moment.
Oklahoma, by the way.
Oklahoma, by the way. I mean, Oklahoma State, by the way, is going to make a stink about this. TCU and Tech and Baylor are going to make a stink about this.
Has Baylor ever made a stink during realignment talks? I'm not familiar.
I know I got to get you out of here, but I do just want to say this. If you are thinking about this from a quality of football perspective, don't think of these as football teams.
Yeah.
Don't even think of them as athletic programs.
Yeah.
Think of them as brands.
Yeah.
Okay? And say what you want about the University of Texas, but Texas is a premium brand.
Yeah. Well,
And if the SEC can add a premium brand, that is ultimately going to be better for the SEC.
Yeah. The thing that I'll say, right, is that obviously this publication in a lot of ways was started through the Southwest Conference, right? And I think it's been disheartening, to say the least, to see sort of that emphasis on regionality, that emphasis on rivalry, that emphasis on fan base, kind of get replaced with this emphasis on national TV revenue, right? I think that's obviously very disappointing, but that's also the reality of where we're at, right? I mean, these programs, again, you see programs go to worse situations. You see Nebraska go to the Big Ten where they can't be competitive because of perceived better TV opportunities, right? And that's just the reality of the sport. And we can, complain and be upset about it.
And we will.
And we absolutely will. I'll tell you what, the one thing that kills me, right, is like all of a sudden, as someone who covers the state of Texas, just no matter where everybody ends up, going to be a whole lot harder for me to cover any road games, right? That sucks. But that's the reality.
Don't do it for Shahan.
Well,
that's what we're saying here.
He's
Think
Shahan-
about our guy.
Shahan J. Rogers, college football insider and the host of Republic of Football here on TexasFootball.com. I'm sure you'll have a podcast coming up here pretty shortly.
Shout out to Mallory, who was like, "Hey guys, we're all like kind of tired and a little out of it. Why don't we push the podcast recording to tomorrow?" Thank God.
Smart producer. That's good producing. Shahan, thanks for your time, man. Go
Thanks,
tell
Shahan.
Seth Latrell we said hi. We are Texas Football Today. We're here every weekday at noon on TexasFootball.com, talking football in the Lone Star State. You can follow us on Twitter at DCTF, like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, Instagram.com/Dave Campbell's. And, of course, see us at TexasFootball.com. TexasFootball.com is where you can find complete coverage of high school football, college football, and recruiting all across the Lone Star State. Please consider becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider at TexasFootball.com/subscribe. I'm sure everybody in the comments is being very reasonable about Texas.
They said go Malpal.
Go Malpal.
That's the overarching consensus here.
Well, Pickle, that was the big news from the college perspective.
And then the high school world decided to say, hey, we're still here.
This morning, we had some pretty big news from the high school ranks.
We sure did.
On TexasFootball.com, we've got the story that Austin Westlake coach Todd Dodge is retiring after the 2021 season.
Yes.
He's going to retire. He is, of course, he's entering now his 23rd season as a Texas high school football head coach. He is the 69th winningest coach in UIL 11-man history.
Nice.
He's got 6 titles to his name, including the
Back to back.
2019 and 2020, plus that three-peat that he had with Carroll, and I think it was 4 and 5 years or 4 and 6 years.
Yes.
There at Carroll. He's also, of course, he was a record-setting quarterback at Port Arthur Jefferson. He was a great quarterback at Texas, etc. He was also, I should probably mention, he's also the former North Texas coach. I know he probably doesn't want me to mention that. It did not go great, but he did have a swim through North Texas as their head coach. Okay, let's step back a moment, and I'll tell you a little story. That this is not surprising.
No.
For us. And this was the kind of thing we started hearing back in 2019, to be honest. And we started hearing rumblings and rumors that that Todd Dodge might be retiring.
Right.
And so much so that I believe going into that title game against Geyer in 2019, there was a thought that we had shared with multiple media brethren and good sources that said, you know what, if they win, he might just ride off into the sunset. He might just go out on top and say, guys, we did it, and I'm a state champion, and I can finish on a high.
And then Cade Klubnik came
So
around.
maybe it might be him. It might be that. I'm also just a believer that coaches have that itch, and it can only be scratched one way.
Right.
And they don't know how to do it any other way. But this is something that's been on our radar since then. So much so that I believe Thomas Jones, our friend Thomas Jones at the Westlake Picayune, asked him straight up after the game in 2019, "Are you retiring?" And he said, "No, I'm going to come back for 2020."
Yeah.
Because I remember him tweeting it out, and I remember thinking, like, if I didn't have the context of the kind of rumblings, that would have been very strange. It's like, of course he's coming back. Why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
We also thought that last year could have been the last year as well.
Yes.
But basically, over the course of the offseason, we've consistently heard this drumbeat that this was coming, that Todd Dodge, that 2021 was going to be the final year for Todd Dodge. And now it's come down. He announced he had a small press gathering there at Westlake, and he announced that he is going to retire after the 2021 season. It'll be his 23rd season there, and, of course, his record speaks for itself. Now, there is going to be talk about, okay, well, who's next?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be clear that I don't know.
We do not have
We
any
do
inside
not
information.
know.
But reading the tea leaves.
Reading the tea leaves and sources that I've talked to have said that there is one very clear favorite for the job, and it is defensive coordinator Tony Salazar, who's been the longtime defensive coordinator there at Westlake. And reading the tea leaves, I'm glad you brought that up, Pickle, because a lot of things make sense if you think about it in that phrase. Tony Salazar is on the extremely short list of the most respected defensive minds in Texas high school football.
Yes.
Extremely short list.
No one is going to refute that statement. Right. Any normal fan will not refute that.
And I know for a fact that his phone has rang and that he has gotten offers from good jobs.
To be the head coach.
To be the head coach. Good jobs. I know that for a fact. And there's a reason. I think a lot of things click into place if you start thinking about, well, why would he stick around be a defensive coordinator when he could go be a head coach at a good job, by the way, not like some rebuild, like a good job, a contender. Like, why would he stay there? And a lot of it makes sense.
Like a ready-to-move-into house.
Right. A lot of it makes sense if you understand the idea that he is considered to be the heavy front runner to be the new head coach. That is part speculation, admittedly, and I want to be clear about that. But I do think that there are enough tea leaves and enough sources that I've talked to that say that Tony Salazar is the favorite, let's say, to be the new head coach at Westlake.
And I think that it was very easy to see that once it was announced on social media. Every single person, whether we're talking about journalists, whether we're talking about normal fans, there was a group consensus of our opinion does not matter at all. But Westlake, you might be a little dumb if you look this guy over. It
seems like you've got an obvious choice there.
Right.
A lot of things make a lot of sense about that. So that's the huge news there that Todd Dodge is going to retire after the 2021 season. An opportunity to go and win his 7th state championship. He is, of course, taking over the #1 team in 6A Division 1.
And just congratulations, Coach.
Yes,
You know, like
absolutely.
that's
Great.
another side note. Congrats.
Yeah, exactly right. Congratulations. We wish you all the best. He's always been a good friend of Dave Campbell's Texas football. We've got a lot of respect for Coach Dodge. And yeah, so it's an interesting situation that it'll be the Todd Dodge farewell tour, so to speak, in 2021. But he is going to retire after the 2021 season. We've got more on this at TexasFootball.com if you're going to want to go read that. So that is the news there from the coaching realm. Pickle, this past weekend, you and I and some friends were down
like everyone.
We're down in San Antonio for the THSCA coaching school and convention. And did we ever get a count on how many interviews we did?
No, I'll do that.
It's over. It's 40-something, right?
Yeah, I'm not counting the bits. I have no idea.
No.
That's a high number.
Different.
I can't count that high.
But one of the guys that we talked to, it's very strange to spot a 6-man coach at the THSCA coaching school and convention.
Other than Terry Crawford, who's in the comments, he's a junkie.
Hey, buddy.
We know him.
But he's also the Texas 6-man coaches association liaison to the UIL, I should say. So there's plenty of reasons there. But one of the guys that we caught up with is Dalton DeGraffenreid. Dalton DeGraffenreid is the head coach of the Lamesa Klondike Cougars. He was gracious enough to sit down with us and chat a little bit. Here is our conversation with Klondike coach, Dalton DeGraffenreid, here on Texas Football Today. Greg Tepper of Dave Campbell's Texas Football and TexasFootball.com here in San Antonio at the THSCA Coaching School and Convention with a six-man guy, the head coach of the Klondike Cougars, Coach Dalton DeGraffenreid. Coach, appreciate your time.
Oh, yes, sir.
What are you doing here?
We don't
see, I mean that in a nice way. We don't see a ton of six-man coaches around here.
Yeah, for sure. I wish more 1A coaches would come attend this clinic. It's awesome. We learn a ton every year. Our entire staff is actually here, boys side and girls side. So, we just come and we listen to a lot of the talks and, get to network a little bit with a lot of other coaches. So, it's an awesome convention.
Well, and it strikes me that you're in an interesting position where in schematic conversations at the six-man perspective are basically not happening.
Oh,
here.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? This
yeah.
is, from a football perspective, there's a lot of 11-man stuff. So is it safe to say then that you're here trying to get tips on culture building and the things that transcend scheme?
Sure, yeah. I try to attend a lot of the strength and conditioning talks, and I try to attend, some track talks. But, we're always trying to steal stuff and learn stuff. So, anytime somebody's talking about offensive drills, defensive drills, we still have to block, run, and tackle at our level. So, we try to learn something every day, and, it's – when you've got the best minds in the state, and some of them, coming out of the state, come to speak, we can assure we're gonna learn something.
So I think I'm fairly certain I covered you when you played, which makes me feel very very old. How old are you?
I'm 27.
God almighty. Okay. So, let's talk a little bit about your Cougars. Last year, an 11-1 year, a really fantastic year for your Cougars. I'm interested, what do you maybe know about the job now, being the head coach there for the Cougars, that you didn't know maybe when you started there?
Yeah, whenever I started there at 23, I didn't know what to expect. But, after being there 4 years, it's definitely an adaptation. I came from 11-man. I played 11-man growing up. I coached 11-man for 2 years, and so my first little bit of six-man was, baptism by fire. So, I've learned a lot the last 4 years, and mainly it's just, staying true to what we do. And the kids have completely bought in. It's a total 100% buy-in from them. From a culture standpoint, that's where I think we've done the best job. Is our kids expect to win on Friday nights now, and that goes a long way.
Well, and one guy you guys are going to welcome back after a fantastic year is Josh Ayers-Mendez, who was, I think, District Offensive Player of the Year. I think we have him on our preseason All-State team in the magazine.
Yes,
a guy we're crazy about. You're the guy who sees him every day. I can watch the film, and I can tell you he's pretty good at football.
Yeah.
You're the guy who sees him every day in practice. What is it about Josh that sets him apart?
He's one of those true, dual threat guys. At our level, he plays spread back for us, and he can hurt you with his arm. He can hurt you with his legs. He was actually our leading rusher and passer last year, which is, obviously at our level pretty normal. But he just he works tremendously hard, and he's just he's real reactive. He just he has a natural feel for the field, and so we're glad he's playing for us. That's for sure. But he just he's a special kid for sure. You
guys bring back about half your team from last year's squad. Do you have a feel quite yet on maybe how this year's team may be different from last year's team?
Experience in the playoffs is going to be big for us. Last year that was the first playoff win for us since 95. Those kids on our roster, they weren't accustomed to playing, in a big playoff-like atmosphere. So getting a win in the first round and then playing a groom squad that was, uber talented last year, them getting to experience that, that's going to carry a lot of weight. We won't be as deep as we were last year, roster wise, but the guys that we put out on the field, they're going to have that playoff experience that I think is going to help tremendously.
And finally, you mentioned that you played 11-man. You were kind of raised in 11-man.
is six man where you see yourself going forward? Or is it just kind of like I'm going to see where it goes? I'm having fun coaching football.
Oh yeah, I love Klondike. I love those kids. But I'm a football guy.
Yeah.
So wherever I end up is I know it's going to be somewhere where we're playing football and we're trying to play a good brand of it. So I'm just thankful that I had some guys. My dad graduated with Dwayne Lee. So he's helped me a ton. So I learned a lot quick, and then now I'm just trying to produce. But 11-man, 6-man, doesn't matter. As long as we're playing football on Friday night.
Well, I remain offended by how young you are, and I will continue to do that. Dalton DeGraff and Reed from Klondike. Appreciate your time.
Yes,
Coach.
sir. Thank you, Tep.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like
Listen to
more
you.
and to be
I'll turn you
notified
on.
when they
There
come
he
out,
is.
go.
Dalton DeGraff and Reed. The head coach of the Klondike Cougars, who is entering his 5th year as the head coach of the Cougars, and he said he was 27.
Yeah.
So start doing that math. Yeah, that was the humbler for me, as I was like, "Hey Dalton, how you doing, man?" And I'm like, "I remember covering you at Crane. Like,
Yeah.
I remember he was like a awesome receiver at Crane. I want to say he might have been like, he was All-State at least once. He might have been 2-time All-State. He
That's
was
awesome.
a superstar there, and I think he went and played at like a small college, but comes back and gets a job in 6-man football, and that transition can be weird sometimes. But I mean, the dude is 31-12 as a head coach.
Yeah.
I mean, a star, a rising star.
No kidding.
And super cool. I like the idea. I don't know. I agree with him. I like the idea of 6-man coaches going there because I think you can learn about culture and you can get drills and stuff like that. But yes, no. Nick Saban's not going up there and he's saying like, hey, you know what? Let's talk about some 6-man schemes.
Right.
But what you can learn is how to build a program, and that transcends scheme. That transcends how many players.
Especially as a young guy
Oh my
like
gosh.
that. Like 27, that's the exact time that you need to be going there.
Exactly
that
right.
it's even more beneficial than a person who's been doing it for 30 years.
So there he is, Dalton DeGraff and Reed, the head coach there at Klondike. We appreciate his time there at the THSCA Coaching School and Convention in San Antonio. Let's go over to Thunderdome to talk with the Duchess of the Dorks, Ashley Pickle, for America's second favorite segment. Final thoughts.
Because I got thunder and lightning. Bang pow. The gun show. I'll see myself out. No.
I listened to you on a podcast last night.
Uh-huh.
You did what were those boys called? Quick Six?
Yeah,
Quick
Quick Six
Six podcast.
podcast. The
was a
Travis
good-
and
it was
Trenton asked me to come out.
hosts-
Shout out to them. Go watch it.
Hosts were excellent.
And then there was
Guest was fair.
me. Decent at
But
best.
I was like, man, it's just, I don't know. It's just, all these people have such respect for you. And then you come out here and you're like, thunder and lightning? I'm just like,
If nothing else.
are we watching the same show?
I'm always on brand.
God almighty. All right, what do we got final thoughts?
Final thoughts. One, going back to our conversation with Shahan, just so everyone is aware, the Big 12 athletic directors and CEOs are meeting at 5 today. So stay tuned to TexasFootball.com because I'm sure
Yeah.
Shahan will be.
Yeah, from what I understand, the
On that.
reports from, it's like Brett McMurphy?
Yeah,
Brett
from Stadium.
Brett McMurphy from Stadium, and then Nicole Auerbach from the Athletic. They're both reporting that, and from what we understand, this is going to be more of like a debrief, because I think that a lot of the presidents and the people were kind of caught off guard.
They're probably calling into the
And
offices,
they're like, what
you
in the
know.
heck? And it's like, okay, let's huddle up and let's talk about this. So I don't
Just calm everyone down.
I don't anticipate any like big news,
Mm-hmm.
but at this point we didn't expect Brent Zorneman to break the internet yesterday.
yeah.
So who knows? Keep on your toes.
So there's that, and then I guess a couple of programming notes if we want to go ahead and do this.
Yeah.
One, tomorrow, the Matt Stepp will be joining us, and
we'll do a mega size mailbag.
we will do Mega Size Mailbag along with, I believe, our coaching school vlog should be ready to go by then. So big,
Yes.
fun, goofy
We'll have
show
that.
tomorrow.
And then
Monday, the goofiness dies off a little bit.
it does. We're going to have a super cool show. We are going to be live on location in McKinney for the Lone Star Conference Media Days.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking with a number of coaches, a number of players there from our favorite Division II conference. Can I say that? Is it the only Division II conference we have? I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Our
Yeah, because
favorite.
Division 3 would be like UMHB.
Yeah, like an American Southwest
Southwest
Conference stuff. I
Conference.
wanted to make sure I didn't do that. Yeah, our favorite Division II conference, the Lone Star Conference. So we're going to be talking with a number of players and coaches there. But the show will not be on at noon. It'll be on at 1. So it's
Yeah.
noon Mountain Time.
So if you
Noon
watch,
El Paso time.
if you watch this on your lunch break, take a late lunch
Take a
on
late lunch
Monday.
break. We'll be on at 1. We'll probably go longer than an hour, to be real honest, because we're going to have a bunch of guests.
And people you actually care to hear talk.
Yes, it'll be great. So be sure to tune in late, 1 o'clock on Monday. We will have our show live from Lone Star Conference Media Days in McKinney.
But a lot of nonsense tomorrow.
Tomorrow's going to be fun. Get your
Yeah.
questions ready for Matt Stepp because he's about to go back up to Canada for a couple weeks before he's back full-time.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us. Thanks for spending a little bit of your day with us. Follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/Dave Campbell's. And, of course, see us at texasfootball.com. Thanks to Klondike coach Dalton DeGraff and Reed and our college football insider Shahan Jayaraja for being our guests. For Ashley Pickle, I'm Greg Tepper. Vince Young, please come get your Player of the Year trophy. We'll see you tomorrow for episode 1207 of Texas Football Today.